Hi, I am Jessica Darmoni, and you are here with Cboe Digital TV, where we will talk about everything related to responsible digital asset investing. I am here today with my guest, Matt Walsh from Castle Island Ventures. Thank you for joining me, Matt. Let's talk a little bit about your background and how you got into the crypto blockchain space.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jessica. So I'm the co-founder of Castle Island Ventures. We're an early stage venture capital fund that invests in blockchain infrastructure companies. We actually got our start at Fidelity. So my partner and I ran a fund under Fidelity's umbrella doing a similar strategy to Castle Island. I had joined Fidelity in 2014 and was really fortunate to start working on some of Fidelity's R&D work in the blockchain space, which was just an unbelievable place to learn and to start a career in the blockchain space.
Yeah. And full disclosure, Castle Island was an investor in RSX. So that's how we know each other. And if you could tell me a little bit about the M&A activity, what you've seen when you started Castle Island until now.
So obviously, Cboe has been at the forefront here with the RSX transaction. What I anticipate seeing is just a lot more consolidation in M&A activity in the centralized finance space over the next few quarters and next couple of years. If you look at things like custody and trade execution and market data and compliance software, these are the fundamental building blocks for building a crypto infrastructure business. And it's not just Bitcoin or Ethereum. If you have the view that we'll have security tokens and other types of assets that reside on blockchains, you really can't do any of that without custody and trading and data and compliance, all these categories that exist in regulated markets already for other types of assets. You'll see all of that come to the digital asset space. There's been some first movers, as we pointed out with RSX, and I anticipate you'll start to see more of that.
Okay. Yeah. And also, where do you see the most growth? We're talking, this is a big space. There's regulated versus unregulated. There's TradFi versus DeFi. Where do you see the most growth?
I'd say there's three categories that are experiencing hypergrowth right now. One is centralized financial services underpinning digital assets. So everything I just mentioned around the trading and the custody of these assets. And if you look at the broad categories, very few global custodians are in this space yet. Very few broker dealers are active in the space. And you'll see an explosion over the next couple of years of new entrants. Second category is decentralized financial services. So I'd say pound for pound, this is where we're seeing the most entrepreneurial activity, launching protocols to do things that historically centralized financial services businesses have done. There's a lot of excitement there. There's obviously a lot of regulatory questions in that category too. And so getting some regulatory clarity would benefit the industry. And then the third category is actually outside of financial services. We're seeing an explosion of just brands entering the space and looking at things like NFTs, looking at issuing real world assets that can be represented on blockchains. I think some of these non-financial use cases for public blockchain systems will actually be in production here by the end of the year into Q1, and will take a lot of people by surprise just how far along they are. And so those three categories are very exciting. Certainly we're investing below all three of them.
That is very exciting, very interesting. What do you see as everything merges with a regulated DeFi? Like, what would your perspective be? How would that look?
Well, I have a wish list, certainly. So one would just be for regulatory clarity around who is responsible for the decentralized financial services space. Is that the CFTC's purview? A lot of these things are not securities, in my view. A lot of them look more like commodities. Certainly, there would be a disclosure framework that I think the industry could rally behind. So that's one question. A second question is, will we get something like Hester Peirce's safe harbor proposal on the security side? And so will there be a way to issue a network token and to raise capital? And I think all of the proposals that were put forth by Hester years ago still are very applicable. And it's just a matter of, do we have the appetite to go down that path? And if we do, I think capital formation would truly benefit. You'd have a lot of capital formation in the United States if you had some clarity on that issue. The third thing on my wish list would be, and I guess the wish list is longer than 10 things, but I'll keep it at three. The third thing would be, we just need some clarity around things that actually are securities. And so if you want to represent a digital representation of, a real estate asset or something that exists in the real world, and you assert that it is a security, well, how can we get that traded on an ATS venue? How can we get broker dealers comfortable with that? And I think we need clarity under the custody rule in order to do that. And getting clarity on those three issues would be tremendously beneficial from the perspective of just the US's interest in this industry. You'd have a lot more capital able to play in this industry, and you'd frankly just have a lot more startups that would start to take a swing at some of the big challenges that we have in this industry.
That makes sense. That makes sense. We are out of time. Thank you so much for joining me, Matt. I really appreciate it. This has been Cboe Digital TV. And until next time, thank you.
Thanks for having me on.